Okay, design basics. Let's talk about balance. It's our next unit to get into. And balance is a principle of art. Just a little reminder, we have elements up here, we have principles down the bottom, and we've been talking about balance since day one. You've been hearing about compositional balance, but now we're going to talk about the different ways you can actually break down how to balance an artwork. Now, balance really just refers to the intentional and purposeful ways an artist organizes the elements within their design. So here you can see we have lines are an element. We have the light orange color is an element. We have the triangle as an element. And the way the artist organized these elements is a kind of balance called symmetry. There's 4 different kinds of balance: symmetry, approximate symmetry, asymmetry, and radial. Now, some of this will not be new information for you, so let's go through it, review it, and then you'll do a little assessment to see how well you're doing understanding this concept. So first one is symmetry. I think many of you have heard this word before. It really just means when both sides of a composition are the same. It's also known as formal balance. So if you draw a line down the center of this artwork, everything is the same on side left and side right. That's what symmetry means. There's a few pros and cons for symmetry. A design will be balanced when it's symmetrical, just about almost always. If you can see this example artwork here, it's because for every point on the left, there's an equal point on the right. So you don't have to worry about, are your elements balanced? You just copy them. And because you just copy them, the artist only has to create half a page of design and then replicate it on the other side. So there's less problem solving for an artist to do and just more copying. And the other result is that a viewer can assess the image pretty quickly. When your brain is looking at something, it quickly can tell this is just a copy of the left-hand side, and that way your viewer can make a very quick judgment on an artwork. The cons of this, though, is that the viewer may not be able to find a focal point, the artist may not be able to make a focal point. When you have all this balance, it's hard to direct the eye into one point. And the design can be predictable, and then it also could be boring. That would be the biggest con of a symmetrical design. Buildings quite often are symmetrical designs, and symmetrical designs offer a predictability and a stability that can be really nice, especially in architecture. People usually want their buildings to kind of give the impression of stability and predictability. It's reassuring to be in a space that makes sense logically. Now, approximate symmetry, you might not have heard this term before, I don't know, but it's when an artwork has different but similar elements that mirror each other in a design. So, for this type of balance, an art element needs to have similar visual weight. Specifically, look at this example. We have a circle, large, medium, small, all blue. Here we have squares, large, medium, small, also all blue. So the same value, same color, same placement on the canvas, just a mirror image. Approximate symmetry is nice because it varies up a little bit. It makes things a little bit less boring, but the brain still gets a lot of stability and predictability out of this type of image. You see it a lot in artwork and in advertising, because it is such a common way of creating a balanced image. So here you see a Coke ad, this painting by George O'Keeffe. It might be hard to tell at first how it's approximate. A little bit of the skeleton on the bottom is different. The background has a few differences as far as the deeper values go. And then this print of mountains and sun, again, very small differences as you move throughout the bottom half of that artwork. So a little more exciting than symmetrical balance. The next one, though, asymmetry, that's when both sides of a composition are different. An artist can try and push how different each side can be while still balancing their elements. So here you can see, if you divide this artwork down the center, the left side is not at all the same as the right side. That's asymmetry. And this is another successful type of design. Here's 2 paintings by Van Gogh. And here you have, as you move to the right, this element of blue flowers, they progressively get larger and more. As they move to the right, there's also a grouping down here that's not matched on the left. Now, because we don't have any flowers on here, this warm element of orange-red and a little bit of yellow-orange up here, that does help balance out the composition. So even though it's not the same, it is balanced. In Starry Night, this large cypress in the bottom left is balanced out by the darker mountains and the variations in the sky with the moon, this yellow and yellow that pop against the blue. So it can be very hard to balance an asymmetrical artwork. So let's talk pros and cons. Pros are the design will be dynamic and exciting, much more so than any other kind of balance. And the artist can create a focal point in their artwork and that can engage the viewer much more intensely. Specifically, look at this poster by Paula Scheer. We have a little face that is not centered, but even though it's not centered, it is the focal point of this work. You want to look at his face. It has the most unique composition out of anything else, out of all the other elements. It's also a totally different value than everything else on here. So you can create a focal point as a pro with asymmetrical design. And your viewer may want to look at the design longer because there's more to engage them. Their brain can't look at only half and then know it's a copy. Your brain's going to want to look all throughout the design to see what's happening. The cons of this, it's much harder to design this kind of artwork. It's also, there's increased risk of creating an unbalanced design when you have asymmetry. The last one is radial symmetry. This one is pretty obvious. It's when your symmetry centers and turns around a central point. So, as an example, plates often have radial symmetry. This is a rose window. Again, beautiful radial symmetry. And we're going to work with this kind of symmetry next because our next project is actually going to be your personal mandalas. So if you have not seen these before, this is something we'll make in Adobe Illustrator. Here's an example from last year. And this is an artwork we'll be making over the next week and a half in school. So that's a little bit about symmetry, the 4 different types. What you're going to do is you're going to go into Canvas where this video was posted, and you're going to follow the directions for doing a quick little assessment of balance just to make sure you understand it. And if you have any questions, obviously let me know.